Hello, this is Bartosz Cieślak. Welcome to another episode of our podcast. My guest today is Alex On from the band Temple of Void. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you very much.
hmm Tell me, what was your first fascination? Was it the music or the lore of Warhammer?
Definitely music. Music is something that, I mean, as a young kid, right? I was born in 1980, so in the early 80s, I mean, I've always just, I don't know what it was. It wasn't my parents necessarily, but I just was always drawn to music. It always moved me, and I was super into it. Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons were something that also as a kid, like I had Hero Quest and Space Crusade, and sort of like classic gateway games like that as a kid. But when I would go in, I used to live in Scotland, and when I would go
hmm
to the Warhammer or the Games Workshop stores, I was always intimidated, as a young kid going in there, with all these older, spotty teenagers,
hmm
nerding out with all these little minis. It always looked so cool to me.
hmm
Like I was into Tolkien and things like that. But I didn't know how to get into it. It just felt daunting. Like the everything that you have to learn about D&D, how rules heavy it was. And same thing with Warhammer. And it wasn't until decades later that I actually ended up getting into playing D&D and getting into minis and stuff like that and painting. So it was like always there in the background, but it wasn't until I was an adult that I actually jumped into playing it, to be honest. But music was always there. I mean, music has obviously been there since the beginning. So.
hmm I just wanted to ask how did those words interact besides obviously a ball thrower?
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think just there's a broader Venn diagram of fantasy that Warhammer and heavy metal exist within, and so there are so many bands that um, I mentioned Tolkien, for instance, and you think of Cthulhu and all these other sort of fantasy based um, IP, that so many bands have borrowed from, that I think it all kind of converges on some level. And there are probably people who are even like drawing inspiration from Dungeons and Dragons that don't even recognize it, don't even know it necessarily, because so much of this kind of overlaps with one another. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I guess it's kind of all it's bread and butter. I mean, fantasy and heavy metal goes together. I mean,
So was it always clear to you that the music you will play will have this clear escapism factor to it?
no, quite the opposite,
Okay.
actually. Because the my real, um, I mean, so like you think of a band like Iron Maiden, and they have that their own lore with Eddie and like pure escapism, on quite a you know on one level. But when I was in my early teens and kind of in my teenage years, I was super into punk and hardcore, and so at that pivotal moment in your life and your development, I was not really interested in quote unquote, frivolous escapism. It was much more about the reality of what I was dealing with, as a teenager. And so, punk and hardcore really spoke to me in a way that science fiction and fantasy couldn't, you know. So a lot of the music that I was listening to was more reflective of real life than it was fantasy. Um, I would comment on that has for me a bit of uh, like a time frame. Like it's appropriate when you're going through that. But then I'm 45. Honestly, I don't care about what a 16-year-old is yelling about, today. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't. So to me, like that kind of emotion has a shelf life, and it's incredibly important and powerful when you have peers that you're listening to, who have gone through that, and they're singing about life experiences that you're experiencing, and you're kind of learning from them, um, when they're just like a year or two older than you. But as a 45-year-old, I don't give a crap about what, some teenagers going through today. Um, Whereas I think fantasy, and escapism, is evergreen. Like, you can listen to that when you're young, you can listen to it when you're old. That's just, it lives forever. So some of those, um, that's why I've always been into it, and it'll kind of never go away. But some of the punk and hardcore stuff, I don't care about these days, like modern stuff, because it's not relevant to my life, where I am in this life, like today.
But
So
do you revisit your old classics?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
But at a certain
Can you
point, like,
relate to them still?
can I?
Can you relate to them?
Oh, no, not in the same way. I relate to them from a nostalgic perspective. Um, and it's really more about looking backwards, and appreciating it for what it did for me then, and the memories that I have and all that kind of thing. But I think it's very kind of retrospective, um, versus when I was into it at the moment. It was live, and it was in 3D, and it was happening at that moment, and that's a different relationship than you have when you're kind of looking back, than when you're looking back. So yeah, I mean, I still listen to Cro-Mags and Judge, and like a lot of, New York hardcore, and some West Coast stuff, and punk. But yeah, so I still appreciate it. But don't ask me like who's the newest hottest hardcore. But I don't know. I don't care. I just don't.
Okay.
But I
Uh,
love the classics.
in another interview, you said that there's no clear leader in Temple of Void. You operate as a collective, and that's a strength of yours because you come from different musical backgrounds. How does your musical background that you've already told about differs from the other guys?
Oh, it's interesting. Sometimes we're in the van, and we'll play a game of trying to name bands that we think everybody in the band likes, and it's way harder than you would think. Like,
Hmm.
you might throw out, um like, the Misfits or something, and one of the guys in the band like doesn't like the Misfits, and you'll be like, wow, like, I thought that was a gimme, that like everyone would love the Misfits or something. Whoever it is, like, you'll throw out, and you'll find that there are very few bands that all of us really like. Even Iron Maiden, like, Justin doesn't really listen to Iron Maiden, you know um that's weird to me, but like, that's that's just how it is. So how does you're asking, like, how does mine differ, or how do we all differ? I'm
How
sorry,
do you
I'm
all differ, and how do you connect?
yeah. Well, Mike is really into, like, proto metal, kind of 60s and 70s rock and metal. Um, that And then new wave of heavy metal, of British heavy metal stuff, like all this like deep cut private press stuff. Um, a lot of more like psyche progressive stuff, and I think he kind of owns that space, within the band. Um, of course, again, me, Jason, and him will listen to Iron Maiden, and we'll listen to Def Leppard and Judas Priest, and I mean, all of us are gonna, some degree, like, get into of course, the new wave of British heavy metal. Um, but he's way deeper into like the B level, C level, D level bands that not all of us really care about necessarily. And he knows a lot more about, um, older, like, 60s and 70s sort of like proto metal and rock than we do. Um, I'm I'm super into grunge and just 90s music in general, and shoegaze. Um, and so when we say grunge, like, everyone in the band loves Alice in Chains. So ever since the beginning, that has been one band that, like, all of our members have always loved, So that's one that we can kind of all agree on. I would assume we could all agree on also Soundgarden, Nirvana. Those are bands that I think everybody loves period in the band, so it's like an area of overlap. I would say I'm more into shoegaze and grunge than the rest of the band. But then I'm super into post punk, and that's where Justin and I start to like really overlap. He's super into goth, so there's like this, there's a big Venn diagram of all this overlapping. But like he might love Sisters of Mercy. I dig Sisters of Mercy. Susie and the Banshees. That's something that we a band that like we both love, for instance. Yeah, so a lot of British music, Justin and I have a big overlap on, whether it's like goth, post punk, the Cult, the Cure. Um, the Smiths is super important to me as far as Johnny Marr's guitar playing, and then um, Jason. Jason has a very eclectic taste, and he's really open to so much. Um, I don't know. I can't pick one genre that's like his defining. This is like his defining genre necessarily. Like maybe he's a bit more noise rocky at times. Um, he loves Neurosis. He loves Godflesh. Um, Actually, wait, no, I don't know if he loves Neurosis. He loves Godflesh. Um, yeah, he's also into 90s stuff. He's a bit older than everybody else in the band, so he comes from maybe a little bit of a different perspective too. Um, but I think in general, all of us approach music as open-minded, and if it's good, it's good. Like we're not really concerned about genre tags or anything like that or what's cool. Um, you know, I love Belinda Carlisle. Like I don't care. If I enjoy it. Like, oh, Justin and I both really like. I think all of us like Phil Collins a lot.
He's
Um,
got great records.
yeah, yeah, and
Absolutely.
Genesis,
Hmm.
yeah, um, definitely bands that we all dig. But like even if you think of Pink Floyd, like I don't think Justin likes Pink Floyd. So it's like hard for us to find some like you would think these would be obvious ones that everyone loves, but there's always someone in the band who like just um, doesn't get into it. Uh,
With all those different tastes in music, how come that Dev Doom became your go-to
hmm.
place?
It's a good question. You're like, I haven't even mentioned one
You
metal band.
haven't even mentioned it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I
right.
haven't really mentioned metal. Um, I guess maybe that if we're looking at things that we all agree on, Deicide, would certainly be Cannibal Corpse. These are bands that like everybody loves. Um, Morbid Angel, Asphyx, Bolt Thrower. Um, these are bands that all of us can like agree on. And when we started in 2013, um, it was really a summation of like the different skills and perspectives in the band. And we wanted to do something that wasn't cookie cutter and, just, Cannibal Corpse, 5.0, or whatever, or 100.0, however many, sort of clones of, or, derivatives of Cannibal Corpse there are. Um, and Paradise Lost was one of those bands that four out of the five of us at the time all really loved. And they seem to have that, certainly the melancholic melody and doom that Eric, our guitarist at the time, was like really good at writing that kind of stuff. They obviously have like a death metal pedigree as well. So it was this idea of me being strong at the time on like the death metal side, Eric being strong on the melancholic melody. So we put these things together and we're like, okay, it's going in this Paradise Lost esque, you know, area. And as we figured out who we were as a band, it was this like yin yang of like the heavy, trem picking and chugging and all the kind of stuff that is like associated with death metal and Mike's vocals with arpeggios and sort of um, maybe some of the more clean melodic lines that we were bringing. And that just became, and also certainly at the time in 2013, Death Doom wasn't a big thing. So it felt like this is something we could own in Detroit. like Detroit doesn't have like a history of death doom bands. So it also felt kind of cool that we could lean into that genre and that banner in Detroit and kind of fly the flag of death doom, from Detroit.
Hmm. Do you consider Temple of Void an original band? Do you even think in those terms about your music?
Yes and no. Um, I just referenced so many bands that we draw inspiration from,
Yes,
So
but you
like,
sound unlike any of them.
yes,
On the other hand.
exactly. So that's why it's yes and no. I think
Hmm.
there's yes. I mean, no, in the sense that we clearly draw from a lot of influences, and every band pulls from what happens before them. And so that's clearly our lineage. But I think, yes, we are original in the fact that if I was to say, go find me another band that sounds like Temple of Void, I don't think you can find bands that sound like us. You can find bands that are like for fans of, like, obviously, if you like Temple of Void, you are likely to get into Hooded Menace or Paradise Lost,
Or
you know,
Acid Witch,
you know,
even.
yeah, or potentially even Acid Witch. And so there's like, I can definitely see for fans of, but to say there's another band that does what we do, I really don't think there is. I think we have our own, we're such strong individual writers that we can't help but infuse it with our own personality. And one thing that I can't do is I can't just mimic, something else. Like, if you told me make your best impression of Deicide, it just wouldn't. I'm not the Hoffman brothers. Like, I am not Deicide. I'm me, and I have my own DNA, my own, you know, just way of writing and expressing myself. And so that's how all of us are, whether it's four of us or five of us. We're not copycats. We are who we are, and we've been forged in our experiences and our history and what we bring to the table. Um, so yeah, even try as we might, which we don't. Even if we tried, we could really like
Hmm.
copy. So
Uh-huh. I honestly wanted to ask you if you have any clear quotations from the old Dev Doom masters in your music, hidden within tracks or whatever.
um, well, we do have some quotes, but not from Death Doom Masters.
Hmm.
Um, well, so on the
Elaborate.
on the fourth on the fourth album, Summoning the Slayer, our song Death Touch, that was us trying to a degree out Paradise Lost.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
as that song started to evolve, we're like, okay, this I'm getting big, icon vibes from this song, and let's it's not representative of our whole, obviously, like everything that we do, but in that song it's like, let's just out Paradise Lost them at their own game kind of thing. And it and I think it's great. A, we love the song, but B, you never listen to it and go, oh, that's a Paradise Lost riff,
Hmm.
because we don't rip them off, but that song's definitely in their realm for sure. um but it's not like a copycat. It's, I don't know. This might sound contradictory to people, but you shouldn't listen to any of our stuff, and go, "Oh, you stole that from so and so." Like, then that's a failure. Like, you know, you shouldn't ever hear that we stole something like one for one for our band. That's not cool. But
There's nothing wrong with small tiny tributes. On the
yeah,
other hand.
so in that same record, there's one song, I'm forgetting the title off the top of my head, that has a little nod to Radiohead, to Creep in it. It's just like the way that it, he does the like sort of guitar like scrapes, like on the muted strings before like the chorus comes in, and so I do that. That's it's my nod 100% to Creep. And then on the new record, there's a nod to Bush, um, believe it or
Oh.
not, where
Okay.
you won't find it, but
Hmm.
there's a 4 chord guitar progression from a Bush song that I play the same progression um, for like kind of like one measure, but Mike is doing something complementary that kind of masks that I'm throwing that in there. And so together you don't hear the Bush, but if you were to isolate my track, it's like these 4 chords from a Bush song. Um, so yeah, there are little things like that. I'm trying to remember if there are. Oh, and then honestly, on the new record, the biggest, it's not a nod, but um like those are direct nods where I thought Creep, I thought Bush. Let me put these in here. Um, but on the new record, one of the songs I was listening to, Soundgarden, fell on Black Days, and I was playing
Great
along
song.
to it. Yeah, amazing song, and I'm playing along to it on acoustic guitar, and then I took those chords and then I just made a song, like, but and so it was clearly Soundgarden, me taking their chords and their riff, rewriting it, and then bringing it to practice, and then doing our own thing on it. So it was very clearly originating from Soundgarden. But when you listen to the song and you listen to the album, you'll never go, "Oh, that," like that's a ripoff, because that would be a huge failure if you just listen to it and you went, "Oh, you're just ripping off so and so." But that's just how inspiration manifests itself sometimes, like you get inspired by something and then you do something with it that's your own, and that's a lot of what we do,
Have you ever considered forming a non-metal side project, be it, I
hmm
don't know, 1670s rock or grunge or whatever type of music that's would include, I don't know, clean vocals?
Yeah, we did. So Justin and I had a side project a couple years ago called Love Interest, and we put out a 12-inch EP called Mother Wound, and that was me playing clean guitar. Like it was very Susie and the Banshees, I don't know, Swerve Driver, Ride, um, yeah, a lot of 90s stuff like that, like coming out of Britain, um, and that's me playing Fenders, clean guitar out of a JC 120, um, so completely different. And then it had Eric from Temple of Void, who was the original guitarist. So it was ultimately like 3 members of Temple of Void doing post punk, and we had female vocals, clean female vocals, um, and then it had Jeff, who's the bassist in Hellmouth, who's another band that I do. Um, so yeah, I mean that was 3 guys from TOV doing clean female vocals, played to a click track, really clean production, just really leaning into the stuff that we love. The Cure, Killing Joke, um, I don't know, Wire, like um, the Sound, anything like that, sort of like 80s, 90s, Fields of the Nephilim. I don't know, all that kind of
And
stuff.
what happened to that project?
Well, our singer left, and
Uh-huh.
uh, we really need a really good vocalist for that kind of music. Um, and it's hard to come by, like this was like, I don't want to say pro level, but like you need a clean vocalist who can really sing. If you're
Absolutely.
gonna
Hmm.
if you're gonna be playing stuff that's influenced by the Smiths, you can't just have someone like yelling over it. Um, and so we have all this Johnny Marr style guitar playing, but we haven't found someone who can sing, because I would love to resurrect that band, because I love playing that kind of music. It really gets me excited, to be honest. So after Love Interest, because I was leaning so much into this like Johnny Marr style guitar playing, that brought itself in and influenced some of the writing on the new record. Because once I got into that whole space, now it became part of my repertoire. It became part of like who I am as a guitarist now. And so it's finding itself more and more into Temple of Void writing.
And as a listener, as a fan, are you into the other non-metal albums or projects by metal musicians? I mean, sometimes they are somewhat defective. They
Sometimes
just
they are what?
they are somewhat defective. They
Yeah,
imitate something they are not really into. If you know what I mean.
yeah. I can't really. I like some metal adjacent stuff. Like if you think of Beast Milk, like I love Beast Milk, and so they are clearly more like a post punk kind of sound with metal musicians. Um, but yeah, I guess I don't really listen to much metal guys doing non metal because I think I would tend to agree with you. Sometimes maybe they're just not as good as it as straight up non metal musicians. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Uh, you have very meticulous covers, and I wonder if you think that AI will replace the actual artists to the point when it will be impossible for the human eye to distinguish actual human work from the system generated pictures. And what does it actually mean for underground bands like yours?
Well, when DSI came out with their AI generated cover, there was a lot of backlash, on the internet,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
which I thought was encouraging. That people didn't want that. They're like, you can do better. You can hire an independent artist. You don't need to just use AI for this. Um, so I thought it was cool, honestly, that people were that protective over creativity and human, you know, input, even on album covers. Um, Certainly, AI, if not already, is producing content that to the average viewer is indistinguishable from, you know, from a human, and it just that is what it is. Can't stop progress, like and technical development. So it is what it is. We won't use it, won't use AI in our album covers whatsoever. We love having relationships with different artists and working with them, and we treat the artists as collaborators. Um, we don't dictate like this is what it is. It's more like here's a brief. You're part of the band now. Like you. It's about the humans perspective and their ingenuity and their innovation and what they bring to the table and their point of view. And AI is obviously trained on things retroactively. It can only see what has already been done. Um, so by definition, it's already going to be a copy of something else. Um, and I'm sure there are times when it's fine. Like I use AI at work, for instance. Of course, everyone should be using it on some level for efficiency and for a variety of different reasons. But art is inherently should come from your soul, and AI by definition has no soul. So um, it's soulless.
Uh-huh.
To use AI to create art. I don't think that's art. It's decoration. I think you could call it decoration, but I wouldn't call it art because there's no soul in it. I use AI for drums, right? Like in GarageBand. I'll be riffing on something, I'll record it, and I'll have an AI drummer play in the background for me. It's totally great. It helps me like experiment with things at home when I don't have, a drummer sitting next to me, at whatever, 10 o'clock at night. I can just record something and I can use AI and it'll give me some ideas for drums. That's great. There's a time and a place for it, but then it's not like I take that to Jason and say, Jason, do what this drummer did. No, it's just it helps me in the moment be creative. So there are ways that you can, I think, use AI um, in your creative process um, to spar with, for sure, but not as a final product. Definitely not.
Hmm. What does it mean to be an underground band in a world where where almost any music exists on the same platform and gets promoted on the same social media?
Hmm. Well, I mean, on the one hand, I want to look at the positive side, which is social media and the platforms that you mentioned give us access to fans, give us access to people on an unprecedented scale, and so that sort of one to one, like person to person interaction with fans is awesome. Um, but obviously, there's a lot of it, and there's a lot of shit. There's good stuff, there's bad stuff. So you can definitely get lost in the sea, of madness, out there. But I guess, I mean, on the whole, I think the idea of broad distribution for your art is positive, you know? Um, yeah. And yeah, actually, like Justin just switched over to Apple Music, and we were sharing like hip hop uh, MCs that we're into recently, and just the ability to be able to pick up your phone, and then share with someone, and then they can just be like, "Oh wow, I've never heard this Big Pun record. This is amazing," or check out J. Cole, and he's able to share some black metal with me, like at the touch of a finger, and then for me to really fall in love with that black metal band, or him to fall in love with that, hip hop record. Um, that's awesome. That distribution and joy, can be at the tip of your fingers, but certainly if you talk to Mike and you see his room, his Kallax unit filled with thousands of LPs, you know,
I've
there's
seen
no
that in other interviews. Yes,
yeah, there's
that's
no
impressive.
there's no like substitution for, like, okay, so audio, I can listen to it and enjoy it. But yeah, if you look at the TOV album cover on an iPhone, well, it's not the same as picking up the gatefold, and like
Hmm.
pouring over it and like looking at, it pales in comparison. So yeah, there's times when it's nice certainly to have physical formats, and then supplement that with digital, you know, formats to make it convenient when you're in the gym and you're in your car, so.
Is there something you absolutely dislike about music, be it specific genre, subgenre, motives, topics, whatever?
Yeah, I hate country music. um
Any country music?
yeah, I really,
Uh huh.
I don't have really any redeeming, for me, I don't find any redeeming quality in country.
Hmm.
And even people who are like, old country, I don't give a crap. If I never heard country again, I don't care if it's old, new, I'd be quite all right never hearing country music again in my life. Um, I also, I love hip hop, but I hate mumble rap, and I hate auto-tuned, like contemporary hip hop that mumbles and auto-tunes a lot and doesn't really flow. Like, I like my MCs to be very proficient, like technically proficient, have awesome flows, you know, um, have great lyrics. So yeah, some modern hip hop. I feel like a lot of the stuff that's really big just isn't very skillful, whatsoever. Uh, yeah, and I guess like if it's political, I mean, certainly I need it to align with my politics. Like, everyone in the band is very liberal minded, and so I'm not going to listen to something that is right wing, So, um, yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay. Alex, thank you for this conversation. Thank you.
Hmm.
Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.